Welcome everyone. Someone claps behind. To the weekly Tanya Class. We're beginning today chapter 37. A very important chapter. We're actually continuing, picking up from which is a 3-chapter series, which could be divided to 35. So it's 3 chapters that are explaining why the Beinoni, although he doesn't accomplish in his service of Hashem, he doesn't change himself, he's still accomplishing great things. The first point that we discussed in chapter 35 is that when it comes to connecting to God, how much you change your character doesn't matter as much, because that's really to grasp God is not by feeling and understanding. Because no one could really grasp and understand Hashem and feel Hashem. The only way you could truly connect, the real connection, is by action, by deeds. So therefore the Beinoni and the Tzaddik, who are equally as devoted and dedicated to doing the right things, to doing the mitzvahs, their connection to Hashem is the same. How much they feel it, there's a difference, but the actual connection is the same.
Between the Beinoni and the Tzaddik.
Yeah. The second point is that although you're not accomplishing and changing your own character, but slowly but surely you're changing the character of the whole world. Now that's chapter 36 and 37. So chapter 36 we explored the statement of Chazal that Hashem desired to have a dwelling place in the lower realms, in this world. That's Hashem's desire. He wants to be revealed here. It's something which is super rational. That's why it's called a taiva. It's just a will of Hashem, which has no
rational.
Not necessarily is there anything rational behind it. It just causes Hashem pleasure. But that's what Hashem wants. And how is that accomplished? So we discussed that the idea, the term dir b'tachtonim includes a few sides. Number one, where does he want to be revealed? In the Tachtonim, in the lower realms. Number two, it has to be something that's accomplished through the Tachtonim. It's not that Hashem wants angels to change this world and then he'll come to this world. Hashem wants people who live in this world and are bound by the limits of this world with all the hardships, and the world is actually the opposite of spirituality, of godliness. Hashem wants us to overcome that, and that's his pleasure.
What does a dir mean?
Dir means a dwelling. He wants to feel at home. Which means a person, when he's at home, he's fully exposed. He's not hiding he's not in Purim, we're coming to costumes. I say that today Purim, my children at least, you see that Purim is the day that they show what they really want. The whole year they're in dress up. They're wearing the school uniform, what their mother wants them to wear. Purim is that...
The real time.
The real time. I just read a joke. People have to take it out of the tape. When a child tells his mom at Purim that before Purim a boy says, I want to dress up to a girl. Alright. Great, okay. Comes Purim and he's not, he goes to shul without anything. Didn't dress up to anything. So his mom tells him, you want to dress up to a girl. He says, I am, but I couldn't find something to wear. Alright. Do some editing. So, the dir is where Hashem, just like when a person is at home, he's himself. So Hashem wants to be himself, which means that Hashem wants to shine in a revealed way in this world. So number one is where in this world, and it should be accomplished by people, by citizens of this world. And the third thing is that dir b'tachtonim does not mean to water down the godliness so it could fit into this world, or to elevate this world so it could become a different world which could contain godliness. Hashem wants him to be revealed, his fullest glory, fullest strength, not a watered down version of godliness. It's the real thing, and yet he wants the place that it shines should stay a low world. Not low in the sense of unrefined, but it should be physical. It's not about running away from the physicality. That's one of the differences of the Exodus from Egypt and and Mashiach will come. And the Jews had to run away. They couldn't stay in Egypt and be Jews. The only way they were able to get the Torah was by leaving Egypt, not only physically, but also the concept, that state of mind, that mentality of. But the difference is, we also discussed last week, and I think I missed this point, so I'll say it now, is that we said that it already happened when Hashem gave the Torah. That was a moment that the world was a redeemed world, and we see it in all different aspects. How Hashem's voice came from all directions, etc., etc. And that was a taste. It says it already happened. And so why didn't it last? So here is where we come to the third point of Dir B'Tachtonim. God wants to be revealed in a world which is a low world. It's still the lowest. It's still the last on the chain. However, He wants the physicality not to be transformed, to be refined, so it could contain godliness, but not by running away from itself. So it's like teaching a first grade child when he's still in the first grade, teaching him university level. And that's God's pleasure, to take opposites, to bring opposites together. There was once a big rabbi who, he sat at home in his little attic. He would study the whole day. He didn't want to be involved in any communal issues, communal matters. He barely went out of his house. So
a hermit.
Yeah, so sort of a parish. So his family, there's another rabbi who he was in good terms with, and they asked him to try to convince him to come out. So he took the challenge. He came to him and he says, Rebbe, it's not a kunz. You know what a kunz means?
No.
Kunz is nothing, he said kunz. There's no...
There's no...
Shame? Embarrassment?
No, it's reason, I guess. There's nothing special.
There's no trick. There's no
special.
Yeah, nothing unique about.
Yeah.
It goes better in Yiddish, but there's no kunz. There's no, nothing is accomplished.
Purpose.
Yeah, when you sit at home and you study, the point is to come out to the world and there to maintain your spiritual standing.
Right. No resolution, coming or something.
Yeah. No chiddush. No innovation.
Right.
So he told him, "You're right, but I didn't come to the world to make a kunz. Nicht gekommen in die Welt machen kunzen." He wasn't a chassid, this rabbi, and because when you learn what it says in Tanya, what it says in the Medrash, Tanya is explaining is that the whole point is to make a kunz. Dira, God wants to be revealed in a way that He's not revealed in heaven, in Gan Eden. And where? B'tachtonim. Through who's going to make it? The tachtonim. By being yourself, not by changing yourself. By bringing out your own potential, not being something else. By being who you are, but in the best way. That means to take the physical world and elevate it. And if we look at that, and the power for that comes from the Torah. So the chapter 37 is talking about the last 2 points of Dir B'Tachtonim. God wants it to be done through us and in our terms. He wants us to stay a physical world. I'm not sure to say low, because when the physical is refined, it's actually greater. But it shouldn't become a spiritual world. The Baal Shem Tov, he focused very much. Previously, tzaddikim it was a big thing, the fasting and breaking the body. The body could get in the way of serving God. Baal Shem Tov said that, but the point is that your body should serve God. You should serve God with a healthy body. That's not the right way to break it, to do the fast and to self-affliction. I mean, obviously it doesn't mean to indulge in the world, but you have to use it. Yeah,
Moderation.
Moderation in the proper way. That's a difference of the true religion of Yiddishkeit and other religions. That they, the priests, they're people who separate from the world. In Judaism, someone who doesn't get married, someone who doesn't eat. It says that a nazir, which is something you'd assume at first glance is a great mitzvah, to separate. Nazir means someone who separates from wine,
doesn't cut his hair. So when he finishes his period of Nazirus, he brings a few karbanis, one of the offerings,
is a chatas, a sin offering. Why is that? He did a sin. He was better. So the Gemara explains that his sin was that he separated from wine. If God created wine, it has to be used. So the Nazir, he cannot make Kiddush, he cannot use wine in the proper way, he doesn't use wine at all. So, of course, there's a reason why sometimes it's necessary when a person needs to break, to go to the further extreme, to change something. But the ideal way of conduct is not to use the body, it's to use the physicality and use it in a holy way. So those are the 2 points that we discuss in chapter 37. And also that, just one more short introduction. One of the most controversial topics that ever come up is who's Mashiach, right? People have different opinions about it, and people are very, very strongly opinionated for some reason about it. Not always just open-minded. But you could ask the question. There is the Mashiach, the general Mashiach, but the truth is, it says there's one of the sources in the Chumash that talk about Mashiach. It says that a star will shine from Yaakov, Yaakov. So there's 2 ways the Talmud explains this: the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. The Bavli says that this refers to King Mashiach. He's the star. That's why Bar Kochva was
in a revolution?
He led the revolution, and right after the destruction of the Second Temple, Rabbi Akiva, all the sages of his time, they thought that he's going to be the Mashiach. So his name was Shimon ben Kuziva. But they called him Bar Kochva. One of the reasons was he was like a star. Kochva was like a star. Mm-hmm. And
did Rabbi Akiva get killed because of the revolution?
No, Rabbi Akiva was killed many years later because of his teaching Torah.
But he was skinned alive or something.
That's right. Yeah, he was one of the 10 martyrs. And the Talmud Yerushalmi says that this verse is talking about every Jew. That a star will shine from Jacob refers to every Jew. So in Chassidus it's explained that it's not a contradiction. It says that the soul of Mashiach is a general soul which consists of the souls of all the Jewish people, and every Jew has in him a spark of Mashiach. What does this mean? That every Jew has a spark of Mashiach in him. So when we'll study chapter 37, we'll understand this. So the Alter Rebbe opens like this. He says that the purpose that we learned about chapter 36, God wants to dwell in the lowest world. That will happen when in the days of Mashiach and at the time of the resurrection of the dead. What is the definition of the days of Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead, which is a second stage within the days of Mashiach? What will happen then, the reason why the world will be a much better world, is because the reason why the world is not such a good world now is because God is not revealed. When God will be revealed in the world will become a better world. And the more God is revealed, the more the world will become better. The better the world will become. And even things like today that we accept as part of life, death. Death is part of life. A person lives a life, a healthy life, a happy life, and the time comes and his soul returns. When a young person passes away, it's a tragedy. When an older person passes away, it's something that, it's not...
it's expected, I guess.
It's expected, yeah. It's part of the way we live. The truth is that if a person is doing good, why should he leave the world? The idea of death is actually a result of the first sin. And when the world will be so refined and so elevated, so fixed, that God will shine so much in the world, which is actually through the days of Mashiach. The resurrection of the dead does not have to happen necessarily at the beginning of the days of Mashiach. It says that only tzaddikim will rise at the first stage. But through the service, through serving Hashem in the days of Mashiach, which is one step, will bring an even higher level, where there will be no evil left in the world, no sin, not even a trace of the first sin, and therefore death will stop. That's going to be the resurrection of the dead. And according to Hasidus Kabbalah, we will live forever from that point on. It's going to be a different type of life. Obviously, it will be a life that we don't depend on physical. We won't need food and drink. It's going to be a physical life, but with a spiritual focus. Well, it says actually the soul will live off the body.
And there'll be enough room on Earth?
I build skyscrapers.
Or move to other planets? Is it an avodah to move to another planet? We may be able to in the next 100 years.
Well, how hard is it for the Earth to expand? It's not a big deal.
Yes, I don't think the world needs to expand yet.
Yeah, Japan made over the water. They made more. I think the Earth might be like 60 to 70% water. So they made
a little less water, and you have more land.
Even Battery Park City might have been on
Right,
top
I think
of the water. So I guess there'll be room.
No, but today there's people that they want to cremate themselves, because they're worried where people are going to live.
But you've been across the United States. Most of it is empty.
There's plenty of place.
Most of even New York State is mostly empty.
Yeah.
There's someone that wrote a book about rabbi about cremation. He debunks all the things that people say that actually they say that it's better for the environment to do cremation. It says it's all on the burial is better.
Well, it feeds the trees a burial. It's better for the
It's better for
ground.
everything. It takes up less energy and there's plenty of space. And if people want to have be able to drive to the cemetery in 5 minutes, then if you want to be buried in Washington Cemetery, then there's no space. But
or maybe have the urn at home. These people that cremate.
no, but the cremation is not saving real estate.
No.
And also, all the cemeteries will become empty. But it says actually does say in the Medrash that the houses will be skyscrapers. The houses will be 100 floors, 200 floors in Jerusalem.
The way this new, I forgot who published it, the new design of Yerushalayim. Everything is stacked.
Right. Is that the one? I think that was in the principles.
Maybe it was. Yeah.
How high? Like 100 floors?
No, the way it's engineered, it's very interesting. This whole architectural design.
So that's not going to be such a problem. The space, figure it out. Mashiach will take care of bigger ills than where to fit everyone.
Yeah, people aren't going to need big yards. They're not going to care.
There'll be a place for everyone. A lot of different places that it wasn't possible to live before. Now there's different technologies that make it.
There's a lot of unpopulated islands too.
Islands
and what about
Africa?
Most of the globe is unpopulated.
Really?
They don't have to go to
Canada,
Mars so fast.
Russia. They don't have to go where?
They don't have to run to Mars so fast.
I mean, even Israel. Look at all the land in Israel. It's all desert that could be occupied.
But it's the size of New Jersey. It's not very big, Israel.
Figure it out. Don't worry
Well,
about it.
I don't know. The Transjordan was big. I don't know which countries it was, but the Transjordan, when Israel was a Transjordan, it was much. It was probably many times the size of what it is.
Look how many people are in Manhattan, and what is it, 3 miles long?
Don't worry.
Yeah. No, it's longer than that, I think. It's probably.
It also
15.
says that the land of Israel. It says it's like a deer. A deer, after you skin it, the skin shrinks and it's impossible to fit it back, stretch it back onto the flesh of the deer.
Right.
So it says that Eretz Yisrael is like that. It's called Eretz HaTzvi, the land of the deer. When there's more Jews on it, it stretches. Somehow they fit.
Nice. Which of the sons of Yaakov were the deer? Was a deer?
Naphtali.
Naphtali.
So that's the definition. What's the definition of the days of Mashiach and the second stage of the days of Mashiach, which is the period of resurrection, is a revelation of the Ein Sof, a revelation of God. God is revealed. Like you said before, Adira, God is living, is residing, so to speak, in this world. And how is this accomplished? How is this created? It depends on our deeds and our actions throughout the Golus, because what causes the reward of the mitzvah, what makes us earn a reward for something that we did is the fact that we did it. And what creates the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. Because when a person, we say schar mitzvah, right? Mishnah says the reward for a mitzvah is another mitzvah. So that's the classical interpretation. The person does one mitzvah, Hashem gives him an opportunity to do another. But the truth is that's a different mission. That's called mitzvah geras mitzvah. One mitzvah brings forth another. Schar mitzvah is the reward for the mitzvah, which is the days of Mashiach. That's when we'll be rewarded for all the good things that we did throughout history. The truth is, it's the mitzvah itself. Because what did the mitzvah accomplish? The mitzvah brought down into the world by using, and that's where we get into physical mitzvah, using materials from this world. We brought godliness into it. We made something physical. We didn't turn it into spiritual. We gave it spiritual meaning.
We elevated it.
We took something physical. That's the point that we were saying, that it's not about making this world different. It's about bringing out the potential of this world. In the olden days, students had to fit into a certain to be a good student. So you had to conform to whatever was considered good.
A mold, kavichol.
Yeah. The truth is that the newer way of education, which is the better way, is to bring out the best. Every child, every person is created with different strengths, and not to make a child who could be a good mathematician to turn him into a physicist. If you see that his tendency is mathematics, then you should.
Yeah, NYU has schools, Gallatin, where it's so open. It's whatever you want. You could make.
Not always you have to do whatever you want. It has to also be whatever you're good at. Sometimes people want things that they're not. Because of all different reasons, because that's what the society. But a person has to know himself. His educators, his parents have to know what he's good at and to bring that out. So, making the world a godly place doesn't mean turning Earth into a different planet, into Gan Eden. What makes us tachtonim, the lowest, is the fact that we're physical, and being physical is not a problem. Being physical actually is a way to bring in, to draw down the greatest level of godliness. God will not be revealed in the upper world the way He could become revealed over here. But in order to accomplish that, we have to bring out that potential. We have to take physicality and make it a home for God. So the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. Meaning, what's a mitzvah? Mitzvah is that I take something that belongs to the physical world, Elam Haza Agashmi, and I use it for a mitzvah. Which means I am revealing, exposing that this physical thing was created by God for a purpose. When I use that thing for the purpose that it was intended for, I revealed God in another little bit of this vast world. So and that creates, that's Mashiach. When the whole world will be refined that way, that means that Mashiach is here. That's what it means. And automatically all the negativity will disappear because godliness is revealed. So the truth is, when I did the mitzvah, I redeemed a certain area of the world. I made it. I brought Mashiach to that world. That's why every Jew is Mashiach, because the general Mashiach comes at the end. I heard a nice mashal to explain this. People say, you're saying that all our mitzvahs add up. Where do you see that that we're in the days of Mashiach? Where's all the goodness? Usually you fill up a bottle, add a drop, you have another drop in the bottle, right? But here we see that Jews are doing mitzvahs for thousands of years. We don't see the world getting better and better and better.
It says
see it lately, but
a mitzvah actually creates its own reward. It says.
That's right. That's what it means. Because what the reward of the mitzvah is God becoming revealed in the world. When God is revealed, that's the reward. So that's the mitzvah itself. The act is the reward.
The Ein Sof light comes from above downwards. It says. Revelation of Hashem.
So a nice way to explain this concept is look at you build a bonfire and then you soak it with gasoline, with lighter fluid. And every time you're soaking it, you're actually making it more and more ready for the moment when the fire will touch it and it's gonna all light up. So while you're pouring lighter fluid, you don't from fire you don't tell the difference. Looks like it was the same from before you put it. But the truth is, it's penetrating and all it needs is the match. If you would put the match before, it wouldn't catch as quick. And now that you have lighter fluid in, the match does the job much better. So every mitzvah that we do, we're actually bringing Mashiach to a certain area of the world it's our mission. Not necessarily do we see it, but the truth is that we are accomplishing, and when Mashiach comes, when everything is ready, He's going to apply that match. Then you're going to see how everything that we did actually made it happen. So when we do a mitzvah, we actually are drawing down or bringing down godliness into a physical object, which means something that previously was physical, and by being physical, naturally it means that it's under the control of the sitra achra, it's under the rule of the negativity, that which is not recognized Hashem's kingship and rulership of the world. When we take that thing and we do a mitzvah with it, it actually now becomes a holy object. And being a holy object, it gets its life from the holiness, from the kedusha, not from the sitra achra. For example, the parchment of tefillin, a mezuzah, and a sefer Torah. What happens? It's parchment, skin of an animal. It belongs to the klippas. Obviously, we're not talking about the ones that cannot be elevated. The three impure klippas. We're talking about the ones that the klippas noga, but still, it's not godly. If we take
Noga is a good or a bad klipa?
Is the intermediary. It's the
Neutral.
It's not really neutral. It's actually
Go either way.
bad, which could become good.
It looks like it means light or something.
Right.
Either
Noga
way.
means dim light. That's what it's
dim.
called. It has in it godly potential. Could be used for kedusha, but till it is not, then it's klipas noga. That's why someone could eat kosher food his whole life, and the kosher food actually makes him more and more. Doesn't make him holier. Makes him. If you're eating it for not the right purposes, it makes you less refined, even though it's kosher because it's klipa. It could be if you use it for good things, it becomes elevated. So we take, let's say, skin that you use for tefillin on sefer Torah. You use a parchment. Parchment itself, as long as you didn't actually use it for something, it was under the control of the klippas noga. That's where it got its life from. That's the way God gives it life, is through that. It has no godly meaning. It's physical. Physical, by definition, is ungodly. However, when you use it for a mitzvah, you write on it holy things. You write holy things on it, so it actually becomes. Is everything?
You're your father.
Right away.
He's retired.
You heard you're coming, you ran away. I should be here in about 15 minutes.
Okay. Usually
So these things, they become holy. Whether it's
The parchment.
the parchment or the estrog, it's a fruit. Estrog could be used for a perfume. It could be used for a mitzvah.
Did you see that?
Also, perfume could be used for a mitzvah, but
Did you see Ushpiz in the movie?
yeah.
They end up making it. They use it as they put it in the salad. It was a very expensive etrog.
So if you use it for the mitzvah, and then you use it as custom, people make it into
Yeah,
jam.
my grandma
and it
lets
has a
my
lot
used to
of
make a jam out of it. Yeah, it must have
There's
been.
segula for different
Still
things.
selling that.
Esrog jam? Or the esrogs?
The esrog.
They do?
Who?
I guess the second crop was a bad year last year.
Right.
The crop was late, so they all the extra sorghum.
in space,
That's
so that
shipping them around.
outside.
Where in Israel?
No, here in Purple Bingo.
We grow etrogim in Brooklyn.
No, Brooklyn can't grow. That's
No,
not
it's a supermarket.
Oh.
You can grow in New York. In California, I think they started to grow.
Did they?
Yeah, they
That'd
sell
be
them a little bit. They have
That
lots of kosher ones. They sell them for some kids. I think Florida is not. It's a little too hot. I think. Obviously, the esrog has to be a kosher esrog. It cannot be arla for 3 years, or just like you cannot write a sefer Torah on a hide of a not kosher animal. You want to give tzedakah. Tzedakah elevates a lot. We're going to learn about it later on. But the money has to be kosher money that was earned honestly, etc., etc. So what happens is that this object, its regular definition was something which was ungodly, klipas noga, and when you did a mitzvah with it, you took this object which was known before to be as something which has no godly meaning, and now what I see as sefer Torah, I see tefillin. What do I see?
Holy things.
I see something holy. I see something, or I see a holy book, a paper that I printed Talmud on it. If someone sees this, what do you see? You see something that belongs to the world on the one hand. On the other hand, it's not the world. The world is, if you look at the world as a whole, it's something which conceals godliness. This is an object which belongs to the world, but actually helps to further godliness to the world. It helps us do God's will, to connect, do mitzvahs.
It gives out, it exudes holiness.
Right? So, in other words, the concealment of it, yeah, the physical has two dimensions. The fact that it's physical, number one, and the fact that godliness is concealed. So that's usually we think of both of them together. The world, oilam, helam, concealment is physicality, but the truth is it's not. Because if that's what it would mean, if physicality meant the opposite of holiness, then the only way to bring God to the world would be to undo the physicality, to destroy the physicality. That's not what God wants from us.
No,
On the contrary,
with the physicality you have to make the
it says that
holy.
when Moshe Rabbeinu came to take the Torah down to the angels, they said, "Hey, where are you going?" He said, "I'm giving the Torah to the Jews." They told God, "Why are you taking this great treasure of yours and you're giving it to these humans?" So Hashem told Moshe, "Answer them." So Moshe told him, "Let's look. What does it say in the Torah? It says, I am the God who took you out of Egypt. Any of your angels were ever in Egypt? It says, keep Shabbos. None of you work. It says, honor your parents. You have father and mother. It says, don't kill, don't steal. Don't take someone else's wife. Do you guys have jealousy and property?" The whole Torah is focused on physical. It addresses physical life. That's what.
The Torah is.
Judaism is not a spiritual religion. It's actually a religion that's very physical. It's very concerned with life in this world. And if someone actually chooses to separate from this world, he's not doing his requirements. It's a mitzvah to get married. It's a mitzvah to have children. It's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos. It's a mitzvah to serve Hashem with energy. For that, you have to eat also during the week. It's a mitzvah to bring karbonis. You can't do mitzvahs without the world. There's very few mitzvahs that actually don't require physical objects, and even those mitzvahs actually have physical dimensions. Like it says, loving God. It's more of a spiritual or praying, right? But it says that you have to love Hashem. How do you know if you're doing the mitzvah of love? No. If you love God the same way you love people who you love, your family, your wife, your children, whatever it is, it has to feel the same way, which means that it's a spiritual experience, but it's tied down to physical boundaries, and loving Hashem has to feel the same, if not more.
Wait, the second one, the one they got in trouble.
So that's one level. First of all, the objects that we use. Another level is ourselves. Our energy. Our energy is also part of the physical world. The energy that you invest in doing the mitzvah. So again, every Jew has this godly soul, which is spiritual and godly, and it has his animal soul, which is, here he calls it not so much animal soul, he calls it nefesh achiyun, the soul of life. And naturally, the tendency of the soul that gives life, the nefesh achiyun, is animalistic. It's selfish by nature. However, that's only the outer shell. If you use it for mitzvahs, then once again, it's not, you're using physical energy, physical life, energy which was created by eating and sleeping and doing physical activities, and you're taking that energy which would have otherwise been considered klipa,
Which is a bad thing.
which is not godly, and by being not godly, it is bad, it is negative. It's called sitra on the other side. There's no neutral. There's either God, or not godly. God is everything. But either it's for the sake of God, or it's not for the sake of God. There's no middle. Yeah, God doesn't want you to just not do sins. God wants you to be doing mitzvahs the whole time. So when the energy that you invest into doing these mitzvahs is also a way to redeem parts of this world and redeem them from the grasp of the klipa and make them into godliness. The energy that could have been used for physical pursuits and now is being used for godly pursuits. I'm not going to call it spiritual, it's more about godly. If you need to use your energy to cut wheat, you're doing a physical act. Eating matzah is not spirituality. Eating matzah is very physical. It's bread, you gotta chew it with your teeth.
But you're sacrificing, not eating anything that's chametz.
Right.
So it is a mitzvah.
Of course it's a mitzvah. I didn't say. I said it's not spiritual.
That's not
It says that a mitzvah.
That's spiritual.
It's physical. Mitzvah
Shabbat makes it spiritual, no?
it gives it a spiritual. Gives it spiritual meaning. Now again, that's what the concept of kavanah will come in. That after the Alter Rebbe tells us about physical, the Benoni does the physical act, like the tzaddik. Someone could think that it's not important to have the inspiration and the emotion and the kavanah, the machshava,
Which is wrong.
which is wrong. But what we're saying is that the physical is the most important. And after chapter 38, in our words, is going to be focused on the more spiritual side of Judaism. But Judaism is is mainly concerned with physical. The act is the main thing.
How do they call matzah something? Oni?
Lechem oni.
Lechem oni.
4 months bread.
And dealing with the mundane world, not necessarily elevating an animal hide or an esrog, but dealing with the mundane world.
So we're gonna. That's what he talks about tzedakah soon. That there is even that could be elevated through tzedakah. That's towards the end of the chapter.
Or behaving responsibly by the Torah.
So that's your life, your honest business is.
So but there the physical has no relationship to holiness.
It is. If first of all, there's you do a kiddush Hashem, which does help to bring godliness into the world. And a Jew shows, does his physical pursuits under the control, under the guidance of the Torah. That also shows. That's why it's not a mitzvah. Right? It's not the same level as a mitzvah that actually becomes holy. But when you do the physical acts as guided by the Torah, also giving them an element of godliness. Not the same level. And that's where tzedakah comes in. So we'll spill the beans. It says, Gedol tzedakah, Shemekares is tzedakah is great, for it hastens redemption. Why? Every mitzvah we're learning now is part of the redemption.
Segula means redemption?
Huh? Geula.
Oh, Geula.
Why is tzedakah out of all mitzvahs? Also, the Yerushalmi Talmud says that whenever you open a Yerushalmi Talmud and it says mitzvah without adding mitzvah, tefillah, mitzvah, sukkah, whatever, it means tzedakah. Tzedakah is the super mitzvah, because what does tzedakah do? Like Mendy's saying, most of our day is not. Most people they do mitzvahs part of the day, and the rest of the day they behave in a Jewish way, but they're not doing mitzvahs. They're working, they're eating, they're sleeping. So what about all that? That's most of our energy goes towards that. They say there's a two neshamas meeting midway. One is coming down to the world, one is going back up. So the neshama that's going down, he says, "Oh, you're coming down from the world. What goes on there?" He says, "This world is a special world. With $5, you could buy tzitzis, and you could draw down tremendous level of godliness into the world." So the soul that's going down gets excited, starts rushing, and says, "Oh, but you have to work. You have to sweat for 70 years until you make those $5." Right? So there's that aspect. So that's where tzedakah comes in. What does tzedakah do? When it says that karbanis, you bring offerings to the Beis Hamikdash, so they were actually, the karbanis had in them all 4 categories. The world is made up of inanimate plants, animate life, living animals, birds, and human. So the human would bring an animal, along with the animal he would bring meal offering and wine and oil, and water and salt. Salt is considered part of water. Every carbon had to have all these 4 elements, but it wouldn't act as just elevating those elements. Those elements would draw along with them a lot more. So tzedakah, in the same way, when a person cannot give tzedakah unless he works, unless he earns a living. Yeah, or even if he has money, let's say there's a guy became very rich. Asked him, how did you become so rich? He said, I came to America, I had a penny, I bought an apple, I sold it for a penny and a half. Then I bought 2 apples and I sold them for 2 pennies. And then my uncle passed away. So the person also could give tzedakah with money that he didn't actually work, put his energy, but the fact that he has the money saves him the energy, so it is as if his energy is in there. And that's the only, so that mitzvah becomes possible through working, through investing your energy into things that are not directly godly. But when you give tzedakah from all that involvement in the world, so what happens is you actually, it's just like a super mitzvah, because it turns a greater part of the most energy that you invest is elevated, becomes godly through the mitzvah of tzedakah. When you give tzedakah, you're lifting up a big chunk of the world and giving it spiritual meaning, divine meaning, godly meaning. So we have it on a few levels. So here, first of all, let's just sum up. We're talking about, first of all, the objects that are used for the mitzvahs, tefillin, esrog, tzedakah, using coins, using fruits, using animals. So that's one aspect of redeeming the godliness and taking this physicality and making it godly. The next level is the energy that you invest into doing the mitzvah, into preparing the mitzvah. Again, it's all about showing, and in the world which is dominated by Klippa, you're showing actually the Klippa doesn't really control the world. It appears to be so, but I could choose to use physical energy, which otherwise would be considered the opposite of holiness, for holy purposes. And that shows that the truth is that what really rules the world is Hashem. Now, even mitzvahs that require even less energy, you don't have to toil. Mitzvahs that don't involve action. They're like studying Torah and reading the Shema, prayer, etc. There's no act. You're not using objects over here. So first of all, there is some energy that goes into that. Sometimes actually a lot of energy. Sometimes people could be involved in not physical labor, but still it makes them very tired.
In tefillah, if it's a very
let's look at someone a writer, or an artist. It's which is much less composer or whatever. So there is energy that goes into it. But the truth is that even then the Torah wants, the halacha is that if someone studied in his head and meditated and prayed all in his head and his heart, but he didn't actually say the words, which is a form of action, speech, generally divided into thought, speech, and action. But the truth is that speech is a form of action, not as you don't invest as much energy into speech as you do into action. But speech is also a form of action. Yeah, because the godly soul cannot express the words of prayer, the words of Torah, without that energy that's invested in the physical speech, and the more energy you invest into the words, the more those words take on a deeper meaning. And like it says, all my bones, all my limbs will say your praise. Which means that the person could say the words of prayer, like you say the words, just mumble them, and you could say them with kavanah. When you say it with kavanah, obviously you put more energy into it. And the more energy you put, the more worldliness you're transforming and making it into godly. Again, you're not making it spiritual, you're making it godly. It's actually not, it's about being physical, saying words. There's another interesting teaching of Chazal that brings up the same point. It says that if someone does not articulate the words of study, doesn't say it in speech, his study is not remembered. When you say it, when you articulate the words, it helps you remember it. It says in Marucha, what is it? The way Chazal says it is like this: if the Torah you studied is set forth in all your 248 limbs, it is conserved, and if not, it's not conserved. Why is that so? Because forgetfulness is actually a trait which is connected to Klippa. It says that when Mashiach will come, we'll have to learn the halachas once. We won't forget anymore. And the way you overcome that body naturally forgets. The way you overcome is by using the body for Torah, for saying the words. If you don't use your body to say the words of Torah, then the forgetfulness, the forgetful nature of the body could make you forget those words, those ideas. If you only left them in the realm of ideas. But if you transformed the physical, transformed your body by using your body to say words of Torah, so you actually take away some of that forgetfulness. You change it, and you break the klipa, so the klipa can no longer cause you to forget.
And you learn things by heart that way too. When you learn it by heart.
That's how you do it. So it's very important to articulate when we study and pray. It should obviously you don't understand with your mouth. You understand with your brain. You have to think what you're saying, but it's very important to say. We'll learn later on in Tanya that even if a person says the words of prayer and doesn't think about them, it's still something good. It's not a waste of time. And if you pray one time with kavanah, you elevate all those words said without kavanah. Because at the end of the day, and physical energy that was used, my physical body, which was being used for the sake of a mitzvah, I took something physical and I gave it spiritual, godly meaning. Not enough. That's why I need to still elevate it, but it doesn't go to waste. In a third layer of this concept is even more, is that where do I get the energy to do the mitzvahs? Every mitzvah that I do, I'm investing energy from which used to be my animal soul, and now made it my soul of life, which is being used as a physical home for godliness. I'm using physical energy, physical things for godly purposes. Where does it all come from? The energy comes from eating and drinking. It comes from my blood. That's what created my blood, my flesh, all the food and drink that I ate. So when I eat and drink, and I use the energy that came from eating and drinking, so really the sparks of godliness that were in that physical object, that piece of bread or cake or tea or coffee, whatever I ate, or when I sleep, the same way my sleeping actually helps my body grow. I could eat and sleep and it stays klipa if I don't use that energy for good reasons, and if I do, so not only did I use that energy that I just used now, I'm actually using a piece of bread. This piece of bread suddenly takes on godly meaning because it helped me perform a mitzvah.
It gave you the energy.
Yeah, so this is all about the positive mitzvahs. This is about actively doing mitzvahs. We're going to learn about next week, God willing, about the negative mitzvahs, the don'ts, how they too are part of this plan of bringing godliness into the world. The reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself, which is actually creating the gula. The gula is a collection of many different acts of mitzvahs that brought God into the world, that showed that the world is really godly. The world is not the klipa is just a facade. It's not the real thing. The world is really here for Hashem's sake. So that will be God willing next week. Hashem, how the negative commandments come into this. So every Jew is Mashiach. You're Mashiach. You're doing part of Mashiach's mission. You're a soldier in Mashiach's army. He's a general. He directs you. You gotta. You're the one that actually does the work.
What does no guy mean?
Noga means
And what Shoga?
Sorry.
Mistake?
What you do?
I didn't see the camera.
Is Shoga careless? What does Shoga mean? Careless?
Shogeg is by mistake.
Be a power button.
What?
Did it stop recording?
I don't know.
I didn't see the camera.
Oh, there.